This video coverage was made possible by donations from members of the community and those who pledged continuing support at patreon.com/makingmedia. You can help for as little as 3 cents a day.
Item number 3, minutes. You've had those for a week or so. Are there any additions, deletions, changes? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve our minutes of March 24th.
Make a motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. You got a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Treasurer's report. Ms. Wells? Mr. Wiggins?
Okay. If you will turn to page 3 and page 4 of your handout, page 3 is the more colorful of the two. But since Brian is much more aesthetic than I will refer to page 4. I'll take use the numbers referenced on page 4. During the months of March and April, in general fund we had receipts $1,265,939, disbursements of $1,259,774, leaving us at the end of April with $130,893.93. In general fund. Building fund remained the same. The receipts in the revolving loan fund during that same period were $15,018 with no disbursement. In the general fund, the lion's share of all those receipts, as usual, were either WIA and aging, with one exception. We had $293,405 received from DOT in the opt-in program, and within a couple of days after receipt of that money, we sent it right out. And the disbursements were reflected as the receipts, WIA and aging, primarily. All of that was passed through, as with the opt-in program. The receipts from in the revolving loan fund were repayments of loans, which we always receive into the general fund and then transfer them into the revolving loan fund. It left us a balance in all funds on April 30th of $1,407,079.
Any questions of Mr. Wiggins? You dare ask one. He's sitting up here by himself for good reason. If there are no questions, I entertain a motion that we approve the Treasurer's report as presented. Do I have a motion to that effect? I have a motion. Do I have a second? Somebody give me a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of Roger say aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Ethics statement reminder. It's the Gavin Brown test. If it smells bad, don't smell it. If it tastes bad, don't eat it. Takes care of that problem, doesn't it? New business. Do you have new folks here tonight that I've missed or somewhere along the lines their first meeting? Or everybody old hat?
We got new folks.
Oh, we got new folks. I can't see. I got a light right in my eye.
I'm David Garrett, the new business service representative, Southwestern Commission.
We welcome you tonight. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Thanks over Mayor Robbinsville.
I'm going to have to do something about this light. I'm not used to being under the gun.
We have our town of Franklin's interim manager, Summer Woodard, and our planner, Justin Setzer.
Appreciate y'all being with us tonight. Mr. Harrell, have you come to visit with us tonight? Where's Freddie?
Pardon?
Where's Freddie?
I'm here, but I've been before.
Oh, but you have an announcement for me, don't you?
I'll be happy to make an announcement. For For those of you who haven't heard, the Department of Labor has approved the trade adjustment assistance position for Stanley employees. I have to brag on my boss a little bit. She sent a very strong worded letter to the Department of Labor urging them to approve this with all haste, and they did approve it, and that's going to allow for additional income support for family workers, job training, help with job search, and help with healthcare premiums. Of course, she understands that this is Plan B. We all hope that the folks that are looking at the Plan 5 probably want to be a seamless effort. So they'll need probably to use this credit anything. But I know the folks are working real hard to get it. So we hope that happens. This is all that. Thank you.
Thank you, Freddie. That's sort of the good news, bad news. The bad news is we need it. The good news is we've got it. We have the press here tonight, local. Introduce yourself because I don't know who you are. I apologize.
Bobby Coggins with makingmedia.com.
Appreciate you being here tonight. Other council members, I'm sorry, you're going to have to stand and wait. I've got the opt-in light right now. There we go.
Greg, will you introduce?
Absolutely. I'm here with Roger Carlton, those council members from Town Lake Sanitary in Graham County.
Robbinsville, there we go. Well, nobody wants to stand up and say so. Not be bashful now.
Councilman Ayers, will you introduce your council member that is attending for his first time, please?
Did you, my mayor, Steve Hooper? You missed him?
Mine must be bad.
Oh, yeah, now I see what you're talking about.
The widescreen.
Sort of covers us here. Mike's not here tonight. He's under the weather a little bit. Mr. Sherby says he has asthma, bronchitis, or something. Is that right? Something like that. Ronnie, will you fill in for him? Get
Real
his
quick,
report,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman, next Wednesday is Assembly Day for the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. We usually have a good, I know we'll have most of our counties represented from the West. That's the day when we all gather. We're going to be seeing our representatives. There's a lot of things being introduced that can really affect counties, everything from the percentage of which you can raise your ad valorem tax to the governor's budget, which calls for workers' compensation to be paid to the counties for all teachers. So a lot of things we need to work on. Our number one goal, of course, is for the lottery money. A percentage of that has been introduced by a representative from up in Ashe County. Put that back in. He's got a lot of sponsors. We don't know where that'll go, but there's a lot on the agenda that can affect the counties in this short session. So we encourage you to have a good attendance. And between now and August 16th, if y'all ain't got nothing to do, come to Radisson and Asheville. We're going to have a little get-together there. I hope to become president of the association for the first one in 50 years from this far west. And so y'all are all invited. We'll find a place to put you if you come. And we are going to bring a lot of those commissioners through West North Carolina for a little tour. They've heard a lot of us talk about it from the West. Now they're going to see it. So y'all invited on August 16th at the Radisson. You show up. We'll get you in. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie. And congratulations again. Let's see, RPO, Mike.
Right here.
There we are.
I'll step front so I can hear. The RPO met tonight just before the meeting in here. We took action on several things. First, we approved the fiscal year 2015 budget. We approved a 5-year planning calendar, and we also had a motion to talk about prioritization for road projects. The quarter K subject came up again. It was given to us by the TCC, which met today, that they thought we should include the quarter K project in our point assessment. So there was a motion made to delete the points from quarter K, which was defeated, and there was another motion brought to continue with quarter K, make DOT aware that we're still interested in having quarter K, and it passed almost unanimously.
Questions of Mike?
Let me ask a question. Where do you think that quarter K, when do you think that actually something may actually start doing something instead of just create more studies?
That's an unanswerable question. It's been on so long, we just need to keep them aware that we are still aware that it needs to be done. And the money that they have set aside, we don't want to lose. The West doesn't get enough money now. We don't want to lose any chance of funding that we have.
Other questions or comments? Let's see, we need a budget amendment, Roger. Is it money coming in or going out?
A little both. Mostly it's going out, but there will be some that stops along the way. If you look at page 6 of your handout, this is budget amendment number 4 for this current fiscal year. The general fund budget will increase $408,807, and the largest portion of that is a $300,000 increase in the opt-in budget. Now, that money has been there. This is not new money. We've had the money in already. Ryan and I were discussing this earlier, and the reason I didn't just budget all of it was I wanted to try to hit it as closely as I could over the course of the year to how much was actually in and out, not have a glaring budgetary difference when the audit came. So $300,000 of that is opt-in, of which $300,000 will be going out. The JCPC, that's the County Juvenile Crime Prevention Council money, increased by $50,000. That also will be in and out. The regional health study is more of the same. The RPO, we got an increase in the budget of that for $9,993, bringing that up to, Philip, I think it's $98,000, isn't it? $98,500 for the state, of which we match 20%. The aging programs is really, it's not that we lost money, it was just more or less a finalization of how much money we actually had to begin the year. Those, sometimes in some of these programs, WIA is one, and aging, a lot of times you really don't know how much money you have, especially in the pass-through sense. You really don't know how much you have until later on in the year when adjustments and changes are made. But by and large, this money is for the most part pass-through. It increases our general fund budget from $6,661,295 to $7,070,102. If anybody has any questions, glad to answer.
That's real American dollar.
Exactly.
Any questions about the changes? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve amendment number 4 to the budget ordinance. Do I have a motion to that effect? I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Keep on trucking, Roger.
Okay.
Let's see. There's an item, I guess it's an appropriate time with this one we should bring up. There's an item not on your agenda. It has to deal with the pay and classification study that we did. I'll have Ryan explain to you exactly what we're trying to do here. It's really more attributable to the policy that we adopted. We did our pay and classification study last year, and Ryan's going to suggest to you a change in that at this point in time.
So the pay and class study is the assignment of classes to grades. This is the policy that this board has adopted, saying we will pay no less than X dollars for this position and no more than this dollar for all of the positions that we have within our organization. Our pay and class previous study is over 20 years old. I didn't like the salary classifications in it. I think I was supposed to be making $14,000 a year, which I would not be happy with. So we decided to update it to keep this agency competitive. You all adopted that 1 year ago. Well, we need to keep this thing current. So what I would like to propose for you all to consider is a 1.5% increase to that pay and class study. Now, that is not to the salaries of our existing employees. This is merely our classification of our salaries. Most counties and towns have this. So, for instance, the AAA assistant, the salary, the minimum would increase from $28,443 to $28,869. That's a $426 increase in that starting salary for that position. A mid-level position, such as a workforce development specialist, $36,301 to $36,846, a $545 increase for that minimum pay position. And then a higher level position, our AAA administrator or our workforce development director, essentially our department heads, an increase from $59,131 as the minimum to $60,018, which is a $887 increase. So the intent is to keep this thing fresh and not let it sit on the shelf for 20 years like we did the last one. And this will keep our salary schedule current, which is the policy that this board has decided. We will not pay starting positions less than these pay grades for these particular positions. So that's an option. We can delay it until next year, but then this thing starts to fall behind and our positions no longer remain. So.
I think what Ryan's saying to us is that we're a business, we need to operate as a business. I think it's an appropriate matter for us to have before us tonight to bring up the bottom part of the salary range. He's suggesting to us a 1.5% increase. That will be the policy going forward. If we don't change it next year, that's fine. Ryan's going to bring that to us on a sort of an annual basis as we go along so that we don't get behind the curve in years to come. Are there questions, Ryan?
One last comment. No staff person will fall below the minimum as a result of the increase of this schedule. So there won't be any automatic raises as a result of updating this policy.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion to that effect. Second. Any further discussion about what we're trying to do here tonight? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Thank you. Now to the big thing. Big money. Ms. Sherby, budget for next year.
Budget. As you all know, we get federal revenues, we get state revenues, and we match those federal and state revenues with the local dues that our counties and our towns pay to your organization. So thank you for that support. We are proposing to keep those dues flat again this year, which I believe is the third or fourth year in a row, at 75 cents per capita. That raises revenue in the amount of $145,577. And that's essentially where our budget formulation starts. How much money can we leverage federally and to the state, which state revenues have shrunk to essentially nothing, but we do leverage a lot of federal money still with your local dues. So those are critical. Thank you for that support. The executive committee did discuss a potential increase in dues and decided that this was not the year to do that. So we are going to delay that request and keep those dues flat. However, they did discuss, and your executive committee's here at the head table, if you have any questions, they did discuss a potential increase, but they would like it tied to a specific initiative. So if we want, for instance, to try to leverage additional dollars for the Mountain West Alliance, which is the group of Western economic developers in the region, to actually have some funds to do some things, to market the region as a whole, then they said maybe we should entertain that in next year's budget. So more project-specific increases in dues that would be tied to specific results and actions. So flat this year. We'd like to continue that discussion for next year. So now getting into the meat of the budget, no cost of living is being proposed. Every year I poll all of the counties. I don't believe, maybe one county is doing a cost of living increase, combination of bonus leave time. But most of our counties are having flat salaries again. So we're not proposing a cost of living increase. However, we would like to reward our highest performing employees. And so the executive committee proposed a $15,000 merit-based allocation for me to use to reward our highest performing employees. 1.7% of our total salaries currently. So that is a specific allocation, a known dollar amount that could be used at my discretion for staff raises or one-time pay increases over the next year in this year's budget. And essentially, we're a labor-based organization. We do purchase supplies, but most of our money is in salaries. We're a service organization. So we can get into the budget. Most folks are usually interested in, are we going to allocate fund balance? Are we going to appropriate fund balance? 2 years ago, we allocated 94,000. Last year, we allocated 15,000. We're recommending no fund balance appropriation this year. We did bring in quite a few external grant revenues in last year's budget, which brought down that needed fund balance allocation. And we anticipate that we'll be able to do that again this year. So no increase. Our fund balance on June 30th, 2013 was $308,900. The executive committee has set a target of $400,000 for our budget, which is roughly 40%. We have roughly a $900,000 budget. The rest of that money we push through and out to the region, which is roughly 40%. And I think that's a fairly healthy target that a lot of our counties, I think, set. And that's what this executive committee has set. So we're not going to make up any ground this year unless we can realize more grant revenues coming into the organization. And we always keep our eyes open for that. But we also, any grants that we apply for, we vet with the executive committee, and then you are provided a summary of those grants that we are applying for. So we are not out there chasing dollars to grow the organization. We are responding to your needs, and we're only applying for grants that we think will benefit our local governments and our local communities. Insurance premiums will rise 6%. Last year, we were facing a significant increase, and we just lowered the quality of our plan to keep it at a roughly 5% increase last year, I believe. Overall, the fiscal health of the organization is quite strong. We're healthy as long as we maintain support within our local member governments, and we're going to strive to show you more value in the coming year. I can get into the meat of the budget if you would like. It starts on page 9. Thank you. With the budget ordinance. And there's a budget message / memo also in the front of your packet. And there's a couple paragraphs on the back, so make sure you see those. But you can see on page 9 our anticipated revenues coming in. We have to estimate, like Roger alluded to, on Workforce Investment Act funds, our workforce development programs, and our Older Americans Act programs, known as our AAA, because we don't know for certain exactly how much revenues will be coming in within those programs, which is why we have to have budget amendments often. But those are our conservative estimates for the budget. If you have any questions about the revenues, I'm more than willing to answer those. The JCPC funds, we pass through 100%. Some of the funds, we are responsible for overseeing them from a monitoring standpoint and a compliance standpoint, and we receive administrative funds off of those grants when we do such. Some things we pass through completely just because it's for the good of the region, and they won't give us admin, and we'd rather you all have the money than to say no. It's a no-brainer. The anticipated revenues or expenditures will match the revenues within the budget ordinance. On page 12, you can kind of get a breakdown of where the funds come from. These are two nice colored pie charts. And unlike the treasurer's report, we never aligned the colors for me. So if you were looking at the treasurer's report and saying the opt-in money doesn't match, it's because there were two different colors in both pots. But this pie chart I had actually Deborah do, and she does a fantastic job with these. And the colors do match. And so you can see where the funds are coming in and where we're spending them. And the bulk of them, the lion's share, WIA, which is our workforce funds, and our older Americans Act funds, which are known as our AAA funds or our aging funds. On to page 13. That's essentially, the top half of that table is what 2013-14 looked like. The bottom half for the proposed new fiscal year. And so you can see which is federal, you can see our local assessments, our foundation grants, our interest, etc. Essentially a reflection of the two pie charts. And then page 15 is where it all comes together. Those are salaries, fringe, travel, operations, indirect, and pass-through for all the money coming in. This is page 15. So essentially every year, Roger and I sit down, we figure out what the salaries are going to cost the organization. And then we look at all our revenues coming in and hope that they balance. We do not hire a lot of staff at the whim of short money and short grants, essentially, which keeps us strong and keeps us balanced every year. Some organizations ramp up staff, lay off staff, ramp up staff, lay off staff. We keep consistent and conservative with our budgeting and our hiring. That is our budget in a nutshell, as quick as I can summarize it for you. The executive committee also participated in the budget discussions and guided Roger and I in those discussions. And so, just to recap, there's the budget, there's the 1.7% merit-based allocation of $15,000, and there is no fund balance allocation, and that concludes my summary of the budget, Mr. Chairman.
Questions of mine about the budget for 2014-15. Everybody always asks the big question, what's he making? Well, he's making what he needs to be making. And I'll tell you right up front, we gave him a raise, or we're proposing a raise in this budget. Ryan will be making $85,000 next year. That's in line with all the other regions. Actually, he's probably not quite making as much as some of the other regions, but he likes living here. So that's an advantage that we have over other areas. But if you want to know exactly what he's making, we did give him a raise. I think he's well worth the $85,000. The executive committee gave him a charge, and this board has backed us up in that respect, of making sure that we operate as a business. He's trying to make us more entrepreneurial. He's getting our revolving loan fund activated again. He's seeking more grants, not to add staff, but to provide revenue for us, taking a little bit of admin off of each one of those items so that we can continue to function. I would also point out that in the budget that the dues and fees charged to the various cities and counties is not going up. We've kept that the same, and I think that's appropriate in this tight budget system session that we're in right now. Are there questions of Ryan or the executive committee or myself about the proposed budget? I think we're pretty proud of what we've done over the past. I've been on this board for, I don't know, 13 or 14 years. No, 15 years. Jerry, how long have you been here?
A long time.
33 years. 33 years. Mr. Walker, can I have a motion from you that we approve the 2014-15 budget, subject to the public hearing, which is on June the 6th? Is that correct?
That's correct. I'll make that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion about the proposed 2014-15 budget? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Thank you. Now that we got all that money, what are we going to do? Next item, Opt-in. I'm just going to turn it over to the gentleman that came tonight, and I'm going to get out of the limelight.
I'll introduce them. There's two folks with us this evening. If you all recall, when we started the opt-in process, we went through a lengthy process to hire a consultant. It took a long time to develop the scope of work. A lot of people provided input into that. A lot of Janelle Spangler and Walsh was rewarded that contract or awarded that contract. Bill Tennell is the lead consultant. Of course, he had a team of consultants. And with him this evening is Stacy Guffey, and he's walking around handing things out. Stacy was a former Macon County planner. Some of you may know Stacy Guffey. We had a couple local people that were part of this consulting team, which we were proud of. So, Mr. Tennell, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ryan. You guys move along, so I'll try to honor that tradition best I can.
And can people, make sure people can hear you in the back, please.
All right. Let me know if you can't hear me back there. Well, first, I'd like to just say thank you to all of you in the Southwestern Commission for giving us the opportunity, regardless of what color we are, opt-in is in your pie chart, to contribute to what we believe is a major step forward for the vision, for the region. Over the past 13 months, our team, Stacy and I, and the other 25 or so members of our team, have engaged with the citizens of the 7 counties and members of the Eastern Band in hundreds of one-on-one and small group meetings throughout the region. We've done 2 rounds of public workshops in each of the 7 counties, in addition to a 3rd round in Graham and Cherokee counties, all of which led up to the regional summit meeting, which we had 2 weeks ago. I know a number of you attended. We had about 225 people in attendance. We were really pleased about that. So all in all, we've talked to over 1,000 people during that time throughout the region, trying to identify what are the shared values and priorities that can point to a unified vision for the region's future. Many of you in this room have been very involved in that process, and so I want to say thank you again to you all, especially to those who were on our Regional Leadership Council for all your hard work. We feel like the product of that effort, which is the document that Stacy's handing out, I think there's maybe a couple of hard copies per table, and I believe everybody's packet actually had a 1-pager that kind of outlines what the vision is about. But we believe that document represents a valuable framework to help guide decision making and investment choices in the region for the coming decades. That work, along with the 2 comp plans that we did for Graham and Cherokee, as well as the comprehensive transportation plan that we're just finishing up for Graham County, all add up to the pieces of this opt-in process that for us, and the reason this is a big part of the reason why we were so eager to do this in the first place, we feel like it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have this conversation sort of at the regional level, to talk about what is going to shape growth over the next 25 years, and talk across the many boundaries that exist throughout the region. As Ryan said, Stacy is going to tell you a little bit more about that vision. He's a native. I only get to claim part-time residence in this region myself. But Stacy's going to give you a quick overview with an emphasis on what do we need to do next? What do we need to do to move this forward and to implement this vision? We all know that on one level, opt-in has been about the road. The whole visioning process, I think that you all probably know, was mandated by the Corridor K mediation report as a necessary step in confirming the region's priorities, not only in the area of transportation, but in those areas of economic development and natural environment and the other pillars of the vision that Stacy's going to talk about. I hope you've all had a chance to take a look at that in advance of this meeting. But anyway, the opportunity that it's given us to have this conversation and to look at things in this broad perspective is something that has meant a lot to us, and I hope you all will take it to heart. Stacy.
Okay. Thank you, Bill, and thank you all for being in Franklin tonight. The first question is, why regional vision? And I think it's interesting, over dinner, Mr. Walker and the gentleman from Clyde, we were having a discussion about Haywood County. They have this quarterly meeting called the Council of Governments for their own county, where the towns and the county meet to talk about issues that they face, but also to talk about ways that they can pool resources. And really, that's what we're talking about here, is what are the challenges that we face in the region that we all share in common? If we share those common challenges, how do we face them in a more powerful and unified position? You all know that since the state ends somewhere between Asheville and Winston-Salem, that a lot of times those of us out here in the counties and the towns feel a little bit isolated, sort of like the lone voice in the wilderness. And you all know that there's a lot of consolidation of power east of here in the urban areas. So it's going to become more and more important that we speak with a unified voice to try to get the kind of public and private investment that we need here in this region. Bill, is the PowerPoint working?
Yeah.
So that's really the basic part of what the vision does. It identifies areas where there are advantages to working together. And you all know that in your own jurisdictions there are things that you have to work on and solve yourself. But you also know, being a resident of this region and being in contact with other municipalities and counties, that there are a lot of things that we share in common across the county borders. A lot of things that we could solve together. Throughout the meetings and surveys.
I'm going to turn the lights down, if that's all right, Stacy. It may be easier for people to see. Just
through the workshops, the random mail survey, the summit survey, and the 300 plus individual meetings that we did throughout the region, a lot of things sort of rose to the top in terms of common themes. And so early on, as those themes were emerging, we framed the vision with what we call the 6 pillars, which are up on the screen if you can see them. Let me go through them really quickly. The 6 pillars are the way we get things done. That's about the leadership and the strategies that are required to move the vision forward. The economy we need, tourism, economic development, job creation. The place we're given, that's about the exceptional natural and cultural resources we have in western North Carolina. The places we make, the built environment, our communities, our towns, the ways we get around, how do we connect to one another in the region, to our jobs, and how do we connect outside the region so that we can do commerce as a region. The quality of life we expect, access to health care, access to education, and ways to promote and preserve our arts, heritage, and culture. So as the goals emerged, what we realized was the tough part is, how do you prioritize those goals? Especially, how do you prioritize them when trade-offs are necessary? Now, I'll give you a quick illustration of this. I'm working on putting some family land back together, put my family farm back together that I grew up on, and doing a little bit at a time as it becomes available. And that takes money. And so I've got the priority, and my wife has agreed to it, that we're going to try to do that. Someday we can have a working farm again. But at the same time, there are things in our house that she would like to see fixed. There's some things that haven't been fixed since 1984 that need to be upgraded, make her life a little easier. But because we agreed on that shared vision that we're going to move forward, putting the farm back together, then we have to delay some of the improvements to the house. you can imagine that makes some of my constituency a little angry sometimes. Not gonna lie. But that illustrates what you guys go through every day. What you're doing is you're looking at a series of decisions, and you're trying to decide what's best for the future of this county or this town. I know that I'm going to upset some people over here, but I got to do what's best. And so those are the trade-offs. And we committed to be honest about those trade-offs. There are sections that I'll talk about in the vision where you can see the breakdown of the surveys across the region that will show you where people were willing to say, yeah, I'll trade something over here to get something over here, in places where they said absolutely not. So one of the next steps has to be to connect the goals with the strategies that help you all make good decisions. So if you look inside the vision there, the survey results that we had where we talked about the trade-offs are highlighted in section E of the appendix, but there also is a more in-depth discussion on how we did the surveys, who was surveyed, and what people thought on page 14 of the vision. But what it really breaks down to is, you know, as we talk about a lot in the vision, we remind the reader that these are not legislative mandates. These are choices. You know, if you endorse the vision, you go back and you look at the recommendations, you can pick and choose. You know, what works for your jurisdiction, what doesn't work for your jurisdiction, what works for the region as a whole, and what doesn't work. But what it comes down to is the power to enforce these things or to move forward on these suggestions are vested only in the towns and counties. In addition to that, we go on to recommend that there be a coalition of businesses, institutions, nonprofits, interest groups, and citizens that help you all drive forward the vision. Okay. No one town or county can speak for the entire region, so there needs to be some sort of entity or coalition with a regional purpose to move the vision forward. That's what we've talked a lot. Those of you who've been on the Leadership Council, Jack, you can attest to the fact that we've talked a lot in those meetings about once this report is produced, we don't see it put on the shelf somewhere, how do we move it forward? And I think most of the folks on the Leadership Council have agreed we need to look at those existing institutions, existing mechanisms in the region that have a regional focus to move it forward. And some of the natural ones that come to mind, at least in the Leadership Council, were WCU, the 3 community colleges, the Eastern Band of the Cherokee, town and county leaders, and I think one that was identified as really critical for the success of this are regional business leaders. And we'll repeat again, it's a guideline, it's not a mandate, it's voluntary, and really what happens from here on out depends on you. So now I'm going to get into the real meat of the product here, which is the implementation matrix, which is sort of a to-do list for you guys, the decision makers, of good strategies that will fulfill the preferences that we heard from people throughout the region. If you're following along in a copy at your table, on page 33 is where the implementation matrix starts. It's broken down into 3 main sections of what should be done in what we call now, which is now 6 months out, 18 months out, and then thirdly 2 to 5 years out. It also follows with the item numbers that you'll find in Chapter 4. Chapter 4 really goes through and it digs down and it details these strategies. The matrix just sort of lays them out as sort of a to-do list here. So if we look at, for example, if I just walk you through a couple of examples here, we look at now, which is the 6-month the 6-month to-do list. Go ahead, Bill. The first item is to form an implementation committee. This is what we were just talking about. It's been discussed a lot with the Leadership Council. It says the Southwestern Commission should take on the primary responsibility of coordinating implementation of opt-in. To do so, it should convene and staff an implementation committee. If you're following along on your copy, it's broken down into policies. That's the policy. It's broken down into the pillar, which is the framework we talked about that we organize this under. And it gives the lead agencies for each of these items. So the lead agency for this, obviously, is the Southwestern Commission. The second one of those items under immediate is appoint a Corridor K task force. Southwestern Commission should appoint a Corridor K task force to advocate for the completion of North Carolina segments of Corridor K. Falls under the pillars of how we get around, and the Southwestern Commission is the lead agency. I'm going to walk you through one more of this just to give you an example. Some of these, you'll notice as you read through them, you're already working on. You know, when we heard that there was a priority in the region, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. Some of these things are already in motion, and what we talk about here is just formalizing them. So, for example, the third one and the immediate to do is establish an independent regional economic development and marketing entity. The Southwestern Commission is currently incubating an economic development and marketing group, Mountain West Alliance. The next step should be to formalize the group for economic development and marketing for the region. That falls under the economy we need, and Southwestern Commission, Mountain West Alliance, and Western Carolina University are the conveners. So those are 3 examples for the immediate. Now, if we move on out, all of those should build so that you've got goals that are out a little bit further. Move out to the 18 months, just to give you an example from that one. Okay, Bill. The first item under that is commission a strategic 5-year economic development plan. The plan should be modeled on the 2012 SEDS report produced by Southwestern Regional Commission. So that is under the economy we need pillar, and the lead on that, to give you an example how it starts to grow, Southwestern Commission, Mountain West Alliance, Eastern Band of the Cherokee Indians, and Smoky Mountain Coast. And if we move out into some of the more long-term goals, 2 to 5 years, I'm just going to read the first one on there. Okay, Bill. Diversify and expand the economy. The Mountain West Alliance should begin the process of implementing the recommendations of the Strategic Economic Development Plan. So we're building on something that we should have already done. Working with the region's economic development directors and identified regional partners. So that's how the matrix works. You can look through here as the to-do list. You can go back to chapter 4, and it gets into detail. I would throw one thing out there. A lot of times you'll look at some of these and you'll say, wow, that just wouldn't fly. Even though people want to do it, it wouldn't fly right now. And sometimes that's the way the political realities are. But if you look way out into the future, because we're talking 20 years down the road here, realities might change. People's attitudes might change, and there might be things that you can do at that point. We were talking earlier about, when VCRs came into style, people started getting them. We never imagined that somewhere down the road, now you can go online to Netflix and download any movie that's ever been created right directly to your TV. Things we didn't imagine 30 years ago now are reality. So I'd ask you to keep that in mind. Those long-term goals are the way down the road. So that's a summary of the meat of the report. Again, what you do with it is in your hands now. What I'd like to do is have Ryan come up and help us field questions. Bill and I and Ryan will answer any questions you might have. Thanks.
What kind of action are we looking for this group to take? I mean, is it immediate action?
Well, I don't see that waiting. I don't see a benefit to waiting. My staff recommendation would be to endorse the regional vision for this board.
Speak up, please.
Sure. My staff recommendation would be to endorse the regional vision, this body. And that is a message that we are going to continue this conversation and carry the work forward. You'll notice in your implementation matrix that Southwestern Commission is listed as the lead entity on a lot of those items. We can't at staff capacity. However, a lot of those initiatives, concepts, and ideas we incubated, and we're currently trying to move forward. I mentioned the Mountain West Alliance earlier. It's a great concept, getting the economic developers together to share best practices, help them perform better in their counties. But unless we're putting marketing dollars on the line for them to be able to go to trade shows, for us to be able to spend some marketing dollars on the region, which traditionally Advantage West has done for us, unless you have resources, you can't really move that item forward that well. Of course, we can meet and discuss best practices and train and do all the things that are free, except for staff cost and time. So with that being said, an endorsement would send a message to our federal, our state partners, DOT, ARC, Federal Highways, Army Corps of Engineers, all the folks that have power of permit, power of purse over our region when it comes to transportation infrastructure and other types of infrastructure. So that's my recommendation. This board is free to respond however they want to the regional vision. When all those federal partners came to us originally, when we convened in Cherokee 2 years ago, roughly, we were told this is the path forward if you want to complete your Appalachian Highway corridor, that the regional vision was lacking, and that they felt that they could go to bat for us, win in court, if we had more of a foundation from the region. So I feel like we've done our part. So now it's up to this body to endorse the work that's been performed. Good question.
Can you elaborate on the discussion that's been had over the course of the last week in regards to Graham County and the current wording that is within this document set up for approval, and what you heard out of Graham County?
Sure, I can summarize that.
In regards to
in the transportation section, there's a solutions section, roughly 3 or 4 paragraphs.
Page 28.
Page 28, thank you. And there was concern that the language was too strong toward there being a strong consensus in the region to upgrade existing facilities first. From Graham County's perspective, yeah, that's easy when you have yours. When you have good connectivity and good infrastructure, it's easy to say that we want transportation investments to be upgrades to existing. But in Graham County and Cherokee County to an extent, they don't have that connectivity. They're somewhat isolated from the region as a whole and to the external markets, Atlanta, Chattanooga, Asheville, etc. And so there was concern that came from Graham County that we're getting too boxed in with this language in this section. So let's try to separate the issue and say, yes, there is a consensus in the region, and there's that sentiment, but that's in the counties that have connectivity. So let's isolate it out. For those counties that don't have connectivity, Cherokee and Clay County, or Cherokee and Graham County, there is a need. There will likely be a need. There is a need for new infrastructure to improve that connectivity. And so this is the language that we negotiated in the 11th hour that we felt represented Graham County's needs while not diluting the regional vision. Because we've received feedback for 18 months, and that formed this regional identity for the region. And we have to respect that because that's what we heard through the public process. So here's what we propose to write. And I'll just read it if that's okay. A strong consensus emerges from the vision that connectivity both within the region's population centers and beyond to important markets, Asheville to the east, Chattanooga to the west, and Atlanta to the south is critical. What is clear is that portions of the region have better connectivity and access than other areas. Therefore, a one-size-fits-all approach to improving connectivity may not work. Citizen preference as how to best achieve desired regional connectivity was probed using a community workshop survey, an electronic keypad survey at the regional summit, neither of which are scientific surveys, and a scientific random survey of registered voters across the region. A variety of approaches were suggested, and the results from these surveys, which are aggregated for the full region, are discussed elsewhere in the vision. Fortunately, all counties in the areas now have fairly current or soon to be updated comprehensive transportation plans to address the individual areas' priorities for connectivity. In the particular case of Graham County, and to an extent Cherokee County, adequate connectivity may not be achieved through existing road improvements alone. Through the comprehensive transportation plan process, Graham County developed the following vision for its transportation system. That is to develop a balanced, long-term, and realistic transportation plan that provides better multimodal access to and through the county, improved access for emergency services, and economic growth opportunities while protecting the area's natural, cultural, aesthetic, and recreational resources. To that end, Graham County's new comprehensive transportation plan recommends a variety of transportation improvements, including new facilities. So the regional vision was never designed to select a corridor for this region. The individual transportation plans will iron that out. And Graham County is working through that conversation right now and that process. And that paragraph about better multimodal access to and through the county, that was pulled straight from the document that their committee and their community is putting together. And so we felt like this respects the vision, and it respects Graham County's needs and Cherokee County's needs for improved connectivity. So this is the only change from the draft that you received a week ago. This is the only change that's been proposed at Graham County's request. So that brings us back to what do we do with the vision? We need to insert that, of course. That's mandatory at Graham County's request. Any questions regarding those conversations? Yes, Councilman Carlton.
Do you feel that language will be motivational to the state and the feds to reactivate the Corridor K process?
I hope it is.
Brian, point out that there are other Corridor K references in the plan. There are other Corridor K references in the plan.
Yeah, there's a lot of Corridor K references in that regional vision.
I think if you feel that gets it going, and it doesn't deal with the nature of the project, it just deals with the project, then maybe it gets us past the goal of having it studied.
I think we all acknowledge that part of the reason, or a lot of the reason we hit an impasse is due to environmental issues. I mean, we've been told that. That's been clearly articulated. I think that we have achieved that balancing act of we need some new infrastructure, but we want the new infrastructure to help us capitalize on our natural assets. So let's design a facility, in my perspective, that provides greater access to public lands, etc., so that it's not just a road, but it's a true economic development catalyst for the region. I think that we've walked that that balancing act between environment and infrastructure, and I think we've hit it pretty close from my personal perspective.
At what point of the last meeting, you said at some point, the Southwest Commission is going to need to take a stand in favor or not of completion of this road? At what point is that vote and stance going to be taken?
Sure. For those in the back, Commissioner McKinnon, body, take formal action on support for Corridor K or not for Corridor K. And I think the answer, and I'm proposing an answer from my perspective, is that we let Graham County CTP play out first. Because that's the community-led document that identifies the transportation network that they want. Now, this board has passed endless amounts of resolutions in supporting Corridor K. You know that. The RPO has passed. Nearly every local government in the region has passed it. So I anticipate that we'll do that over again, but I think we need to respect the process playing out in Graham County first. That's my perspective, Commissioner.
Can I add something to that, Ryan? And the recommendation that there be a Corridor K task force appointed specifically to kind of keep pushing that issue forward as one of the very first action items that comes out of the regional vision.
When do we have to adopt the regional vision, and how do we adopt it?
Well, adopts that word's a little strong. I think we need to just endorse it as a body so that we send the message that the work is done and we're ready to move forward. And I think we need to do that tonight.
How would you like us to endorse it, with a voice vote?
With a motion.
With a motion?
Yes, and then I think...
You're going to adopt this before this goes back before the other commissioners to decide whether they want to adopt or not?
So you're asking before this goes to the county level? What?
These members should be adopting and representing the county level, whether they're going to adopt it as a member of this board or not. And the county level hadn't looked at this yet. The members serving on this board should be a direct reflection of the commission that sent them to serve on this board and their wishes, right?
I mean,
so how could you adopt this without this going before the other commission boards and having the time to go through the document?
So from the very beginning, we never intended to put the regional vision in front of every local government. That was never the intent. That is the role of your comprehensive plan and your CTP. This is a broad perspective of what we've heard in the region. Very, very high level. But I hear your perspective. I mean, if that's the direction that this board thinks that we need to go, that's the direction we'll go. Did everybody in the back hear Commissioner McKinnon's concern?
No, they seem to be having a private conversation up there.
The concern is that...
My concern is each member that's a member of this organization is sent to and represents an additional organization that sent them. And adopting this without those organizations' consent, I just don't see how you could adopt it as a commission from one person representing, in most cases, 3 or 5 members of the board that sent them to, that is representing those boards on this board. So this would only be one of either 3 or 5 in most cases opinion whether you would adopt this or not, is what I point out. I don't see how you in good conscience could adopt it without first this product being delivered to those boards to look at and to decide if corporately if they want that member to either represent it here, adopt or not adopt, is my point.
If I might just add on to the discussion here without belaboring it, Ryan pointed out that this was sort of a regional vision of things to come. B, it's an adoption, I think is way too strong. This is sort of an endorsement of where we are. My question would be very technical. What happens if we get 3 counties that are for and 3 again, and 1 that doesn't say anything, and 5 towns that do and 7 that don't? Is every community entitled to 1 vote? I'm just posing the question. I'm not suggesting a solution. I would rather us tonight think of this as a regional effort. At the same time, endorsing, though, the fact that each locality is going to have to adopt this program for its own community. I'm not going to tell Graham County what to do. That's the last thing I've been elected to do. That's what I'm not the chair of. So my suggestion would be that we as a council, as a region, adopt this. You, as a leader in your community, will need to take it home and say, I think this part will work. I'd like to work on this part, and report back to us what may or may not work in your community as times go on, 6 months, 18 months, and 5 years down the road. That's my suggestion of what we should do tonight. Once again, going back to what Brian said originally, I think it's more of an endorsement than an official adoption in the sense we voted and it was 7-5 or anything along that line. I just bring that to your attention. I'm not trying to disagree or agree with you. I'm just saying that's my take on this. There was other hands raised, if I might. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that I feel other council members and citizens were involved in the community forums and throughout this process. So I feel comfortable that this board could endorse this, knowing that your other elected officials were involved throughout the process.
Commissioner Wood, and I want to make a really quick comment and then take your question. I think there's risk. If we're not all on the same page, then we have failed to deliver a regional vision for this region. We will have failed to provide support for regional infrastructure projects. And I think that puts us right back to where we were, squarely in the middle of the impasse, specifically Corridor K. I think we're back to square one, figuring out what to do once again. I think that's the risk.
Go ahead.
I've spent 18 months with the Comprehensive Transportation Plan in Cherokee County. Went to every single meeting, and it was just, I mean, these meetings are not fun. They're long, they're brutal, they're argumentative. It is a tough process, you know, and I've been doing this for 3 solid years, and I'm weary of it. I'm very weary, but I have been a player in this. And this opt-in up in Andrews, I think I missed the first one. I had something else more important to do. Apparently, the first meeting in Tri-County Community College, but I went a solid week every day to Andrews, helping with this planning process, and I seen people all over the place come and plan. Everybody was invited. Everybody had the opportunity to participate. The public had an opportunity to participate in this. All the county commissioners, the mayors, the aldermen, every single person. I actually drove Ben Brown way down off Hanging Dog, took him way down to Copper Creek, and talked to a logger, talked to some real mountain people way off. When we got on the other side of the lake over there, some of them boys at Hiawassee Dam was all for Corridor K because they needed the road to go to Tennessee, you know. I mean, I worked hard on this, and every single person was in Cherokee County was invited to go to this. And if they didn't, they dropped the ball. We've already been through this process. This is a plan that will come up with it. And I don't believe that the Southwestern Commission should adopt this, but I do believe we've got a responsibility for the $1 million that the federal government sent down here so that we can make this study, to give our opinion on this. And I'd be damned if I want to go through this process again.
Thank you for your colorful comments.
I think we've sort of framed maybe the discussion here. Are there other comments or questions?
I'd like to motion to approve it.
Second. we've had a motion and a second. Once again, I want to keep the floor open though for discussion. It's important to this community. It's important to the Southwest Commission also, because we've been sort of told that this is our task, and Ryan's saying, I'll take it on. But I want to make sure this commission as a group endorses the adoption of this vision. Once again, letting each local community sort of tweak it if it may be necessary and things along that line. I didn't know what the heck quarter K was before I got on the Southwest Commission. I now know what quarter K is. If nothing else, for $1 million. The mayor of Waynesville now knows what quarter K is all about. And I'm not sure if I have a solution, if I ever could have one. And I guess that's really what Ryan's saying, but we do need to keep going forward. That's my personal take. I apologize.
That's what this whole thing is about.
Yes, yes sir.
I've got a stake in this probably as much as anybody since I live in Robbinsville. And that's a lot of not plan I don't agree with, I just tell you. But like I said, we've been working on this for a long time, and we've got to move forward. See, we've got to really, we need to go on. I mean, if we hesitate over every little bump in the road. And like I said, I don't agree with a lot in that thing. I really don't. But I'm going to vote for this license. Because it's a regional thing. It's been, I don't know how many times they've had workshops in Cherokee County and Andrews, and I've seen it in y'all's paper over there and several times, and it's been an hour. And everybody's had plenty of chances to come out to these. And all we are is like a representative of our town or county. And we're not endorsing this plan, but we need something out there to show that we've got a regional vision as a region. And it can be tweaked. We tweak it next month, and then 2 months from now. I mean, that's fine with me. But we got to have something to go on with.
Friendly amendment. Instead of using the word adopt, could the word be endorse, which was...
Yes. That's what the motion is, to endorse.
Yeah.
And I'll let Ryan read this again. Ryan, you've got the wording there.
I've got it here. I'm sorry. Endorse, yeah.
Let's make sure that we have it all. Ryan wrote it out for me, knowing that sometimes I'm a little loose with my words. Well, that's what a trial lawyer does. We are asking for a motion for endorsement of the vision to move the opt-in forward, and a statement that we continue the conversation about opt-in.
That's the motion I'll make.
That's the motion. Do I have a second?
Jack second. Jack here seconded.
Then I've got a third.
There you go.
If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise?
Raise your hands opposed, please.
If there's any opposition. I see no opposition, then it passes unanimously.
Could I say one thing? Having been on this steering committee for some period of time, I've kind of coined a little word that I think we need to look at going forward on this, and it's neighborism, not regionalism. And we're going to have to work together as neighbors to help each other. And I'm on the Water Infrastructure Authority, and I got pointed to that. But you can even see regions, of course, there's other areas where, you know, water can run up and downhill a lot easier than you can here. But you see these regional water systems, sewer systems. But we're going to have to work together, especially with the point system that the state's putting in place. But if we're going to move forward, if we don't work to support each other, and sometimes Clayton County may need something, sometimes it may be Cherokee, it may be Haywood, but we're going to have to use our influence as a neighbor to work with each other to help them. And I do think that this plan gives us a good framework in which to work that through that system.
Thank you.
I'll be quiet after this. But since he was on that regional board, we got an $800,000 grant, and the town of Fontana got $1.5 million. And it's because this guy over here just sat down, stuck his neck out, and went to the meetings and worked for us. We appreciate it.
That's what the Southwest Commission is about. To be repetitive, that's who we are. That's how we work together. I appreciate the comments. This is how this thing is going to go forward. The mayor of Waynesville is going to come and help you if you need help. You're going to come help me when I need help. That's what this is about.
And see, you got a nephew lives in our area. So
yeah, he's a preacher too, isn't he? Good. Actually, his wife's the preacher. I want to thank all of you for the time you've taken tonight and over the last couple of years on this process. it made me quite aware of what the Southwest Commission was about and what this whole issue of planning was about. So I applaud you for going forward with this. Let's see, now we're down to the hard things, revolving loan funds. We actually have a proposition that we'd like to present to you.
Sorry, this is running long this evening. On the 10th, the Revolving Loan Fund Governance Committee met. They saw 3 revolving loan fund projects. This is our business lending fund that we have. This is not a grant. This is a loan for small business development. 2 of the proposals needed more work or more time to analyze. And we were not able to accomplish that by this board meeting. So 2 of those, I know they are very interested in trying to get their project funded, which means that we might have to have a little bit of business at the beginning of our annual meeting in July, 2 months from now. So what we would do is we would have a quick business meeting, we would close that meeting, and as many of you have been to our annual meetings, we will then open the bar, which is sponsored by our private sector partners, and we will eat. We will not eat, drink, then vote. I promise you that. Because that's just too juicy for our press friends. So just a heads up, we might have to conduct some business at our annual meeting, which I don't recall that we've done before. The third project, or the first project, the Revolving Loan Fund Committee made a recommendation, and I apologize I don't have a handout for you. I'll summarize it the best I can. It is a craft beverage manufacturer in Waynesville, which those of you that don't know what craft beverage is, that's beer, or wine, or moonshine, whiskey, etc. They are seeing great growth. They have a small brewing system. They want to borrow money to purchase equipment. Stainless steel equipment, unfortunately, from Germany. I don't know why they can't buy stainless steel tanks here in the U.S., but I think most of the major brewing operations buy their equipment in Germany. This equipment nearly holds its value used as it does new. So we're pretty confident that is the collateral. So if things go south, we all start brewing beer, I guess. I'm kidding. The ask was $250,000. And that is to move them up, I believe, to a 10-barrel system, which I think there's 31 gallons in a barrel, so 3,000. I think they're on a 20-gallon system now, so a dramatic increase. They're wanting to be a regional brewery. They want to serve all the restaurants in the region. They want to serve restaurants in Asheville, and breweries host each other's taps all the time. It's a very friendly cluster of industry. The Revolving Loan Committee made the recommendation that we do not fund at the full $250, but that we fund at $125, and we tried to find a partnering financing agency to cover the other $125. That way we're not investing $250,000 in one entity. I've already begun conversations with the Sequoia Fund, the Community Development Financial Institution that also represents the 7 Western counties, to gauge their interest. So what I would like to do is propose that we lend them the $125,000 contingent upon them being able to secure the other $125, because we don't want to half fund a project and it not be successful. At 4% proposed rate, with a 1 plus 10-year AM at 4%. And I have smarter people on the governance committee that understand banking and finance than me. Chairman Devon's here. He was involved in those conversations and those discussions. So if you have, and Chairman Brown was as well. So if you have financial banking related, I just did a lot of the analysis, calculated the margins, which I was always interested in knowing what they got on beer. So that's the proposal in front of you. I have the full proposal in my briefcase. If anybody has any specific questions, there is strong job creation attached to this right now. there was 1 employee, and they're proposing to go to 7. And we like to see $25,000 per job, even though it is a loan, it's not an incentive and it's not a grant. We still like to see job creation because EDA capitalizes this fund. And they have job creation in there. It is manufacturing. It's a different kind of manufacturing, but it is manufacturing. Does anybody have any questions, concerns about that revolving loan fund proposal?
I can point out that the brewery is located in Waynesville. I know the gentleman that's involved in it. He and his wife have been trying this process for 5 or 6 years. As Ryan pointed out, the committee felt a little tough in loaning all the money and decided we needed a partner, basically to back us up in this prospect. If you have specific questions, Ryan can answer them, or I can. I'm proud of the fact that this group is being presented these proposals now. We have small businesses trying to expand in the western part of the state, and they really couldn't do it without your help and your assistance. So this is an opportunity for us once again to step up to the plate and say, we'll work with small businesses, we'll work with entrepreneurs, we will make jobs available. It's an industry that's growing, as you know. Buncombe County and Nashville, they've taken the lead. I'd like to see our part of the country tap into it just a little bit. Are there any specific questions about the proposal? We would only do this, once again, upon receiving the assistance of another entity in the other half of the company alone. Any questions about the proposal before you tonight? There will be 2 more that come down the pipe, maybe more. A third. In fact, if you all have any, you have small businesses in your community, get them over here. We'd love to look at them.
We first need them to be denied by a bank because we are not competing with our local financial institutions. So typically these are companies that have a good track record in their first year, year and a half, but they don't have 3 years of financials. That's where we can step in and provide the gap financing. And those of you that run a small business and have tried to borrow money in the last 5 years, you know that it's a challenge.
I would entertain a motion that we approve conditionally the loan of the $125,000 to Bear Waters for 5 years at 4% on an adjusting, 10 years. Do I have a motion to that effect at this point in time? I have a motion to that effect. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Is there any further discussion about the proposal? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Thank you. Ryan, what have you been doing lately? Anything?
You have your staff report. I'm not going to read through it. This is a selection, a sample of projects that we've been working on the last 2 months. Unless you have any specific questions about that. You'll notice in here that we have a new staff member, which David Garrett, if you can stand up just for 1 minute. Beth Cook, also Beth, could you stand up? Beth Cook is our Workforce Development Director. This is her last board meeting. She will be retired June 30th. Todd Douglas, many of you have met, will take over as our Workforce Development Director, and then David will backfill Todd's position. So welcome David as our new employee, and let's give Beth a round of applause. For her public service. She worked in the shadow of Vicki Green for several years at our organization. But we know who did the work. Vicki did a fantastic job for us for 37 years. Beth provided for a seamless transition. Thank you, Beth.
The annual meeting, Ryan?
Yes, I have.
Location, date, and time?
Sure. I have a few other updates that I want to try to squeeze in. Christy Carter, could you stand up just please real quickly? Christy Carter's with the North Carolina Department of Commerce and the Appalachian Regional Commission. She kept the opt-in process moving forward. She reviews all the invoices, all the reports that come in on the work that's been done. She cross-references that, all that. She made sure that the work was getting done on a monthly basis, and it's been a full-time job. And if the Department of Commerce and the ARC would not have assigned her to this project, it would have been more difficult than what it was. So thank you, and I think everybody should applaud this. She's also working from your communities, helping you with comprehensive plans, which the Division of Community Assistance also does. She was going to start Graham Counties when we rolled it into the bigger process. So thank you for your help, Christy. Two more updates. Town Hall Day. Commissioner Beal, you referenced County Commission Day at the legislature. There's Town Hall Day every year too. That's June 4th. We have traditionally organized a dinner with our legislators on that day. If you are going to Town Hall Day, please RSVP with me. We have Representative West, Senator Davis, and Assistant Secretary Mitch Gillespie with Indiener already RSVP for dinner. It'll be a great opportunity for our town folks to interact with some of our state leadership in the region. So please RSVP. And lastly, our annual meeting will be at Fontana Dam Resort this year. That will be, somebody help me with the date, July 28th. We will have a little bit of business on the front end because I know we're going to have at least 2 revolving loan fund projects for you to consider and likely a third that Andy Cable's been discussing with me in Graham County. Mr. Chairman, unless anybody has any specific questions, that concludes my
report. If there are no comments, I'll entertain a motion that we adjourn. Motion. Thank you. All right.